To understand how strange that gap in our knowledge is, it helps to look at a second island, a place where we do know the answer. A control case. Far away in the Bering Sea between Russia and Alaska, there's a small island called St. Paul, and it has almost the same story. It too was a piece of the old Mammoth steppe. It too was cut off by the rising sea, and it too kept its mammoths alive for thousands of years after the mainland lost them. The St. Paul mammoths died out around 5,600 years ago, even earlier than Wrangel's. But here's the difference. On St. Paul, a team of scientists managed to reconstruct the last centuries in extraordinary detail, layer by layer in the sediment of a lake, reading the pollen, the spores of fungi that grow on dung, the chemistry of the water itself. And they caught the killer in the act. The island was small. Its fresh water came from a handful of lakes. As the climate shifted and the sea crept up, those lakes shrank, grew shallow, turned salty, and choked with sediment. The mammoths, a thirsty species, drinking enormous amounts every day, were slowly running out of clean water. The signs of them in the lake fade out at exactly the moment the fresh water fails. On St. Paul, the last mammoths died of thirst, on an island surrounded by an ocean they couldn't drink. It's one of the cleanest solved cases in all of extinction science. We know what happened, and we can point to it in the mud. And that's what makes Wrangel so haunting. Wrangel was bigger. Wrangel had more water, more land, more room. Wrangel's mammoths should have been safer than St. Paul's, and they lasted longer. When we go looking in Wrangel's record for a slow, obvious killer like the one on St. Paul, we don't find it. So what did happen on the island that outlasted everything? The honest answer, the one the newest science actually supports, is that we don't fully know. And the way we don't know is itself a clue. Look at the chemistry of the very last mammoth's bones and teeth, and there's no sign that they were starving. The quality of the grass they were eating, the condition of their world, it holds up remarkably well, almost to the very end. There are hints of change in the isotopes, shifts in the signals of carbon and sulfur that suggest their environment was moving under them. But not the slow-motion starvation you'd expect from a herd fading away over centuries. Instead, the picture looks abrupt, a stable population, and then, in a geological blink, nothing, as if the end came not as a long illness but as a single hard blow. What kind of blow? We can't know for certain, but we can line up the suspects. The first is the weather. A small herd on an Arctic island lives permanently close to the edge, and it might have taken just one freak season to end them. A single brutal winter, or worse, a rain-on-snow event, where rain falls on the snowpack and freezes into a shell of ice. The mammoths couldn't break through to reach the grass beneath. Herds of Arctic animals have been wiped out that way in living memory in a matter of weeks. On an island, with nowhere else to graze, one bad freeze could empty the whole world. The second suspect is disease. New genes, or new microbes, carried across on a piece of driftwood, in a bird, in the gut of some animal that washed ashore. A population that's small, that isolated, has no immunity to spare. Something novel could move through 200 animals and leave nothing behind. And the third isn't a single event at all. It's simply the arithmetic of being few. 200 or 300 animals is not many. Skew a few seasons of births, lose a few key matriarchs, string together a run of hard years, and a population that looked stable for millennia can hit a floor it cannot climb back from quietly, without any one dramatic catastrophe to blame. And here's the quiet, chilling part. Any of these, the freeze, the sickness, the slow arithmetic, could end the last mammoths and leave almost no trace in the bones at all. The very thing that makes them so mysterious, that they seem fine right up until they're gone, is exactly what you'd expect if the end was sudden. We may be staring at the fingerprints of the killer and simply unable to read them. There's one suspect we can rule out: us. For a long time, it was tempting to assume humans finally reached the island and finished them off. The same accusation We level at ourselves across so much of the extinction record, but on Wrangel, the timing clears us. The oldest solid evidence of people on the island, a hunting camp, dates to a couple of centuries after the last mammoths were already gone. When people finally stepped onto that shore, they were walking through an empty landscape. They hunted birds and seals and walrus. There is no sign they ever saw a living mammoth, let alone killed one. Whatever took the last of them, it happened before we arrived. The animals died alone. There's a word for the last individual of a kind. The last one, when there will be no others, an Endling. Somewhere on that island, around 4,000 years ago, there was a last mammoth. We will almost certainly never find its bones, never know if it was old or young, never know whether it died in a hard winter or simply didn't wake up. But it existed, a single animal, the final thread of a lineage that had crossed hundreds of thousands of years and half the planet, standing in the snow, with no herd left to belong to, and no idea that it was the end of everything its kind had ever been. Not killed by its own broken blood, the way we used to tell it. Not hunted down, just the last. On an island that had let its species live thousands of years past its own funeral, and then, quietly, took that gift back. We're not entirely done with this story. In laboratories right now, there are scientists trying to bring the woolly mammoth back, editing the genes of living relatives, chasing the idea of returning something like a mammoth to the north. It is real work, and it is moving faster than most people realize. Whether it should be done, whether what comes out the other side would truly be a mammoth or only an echo of one, is a question for another film. But before we decide whether we can undo an ending, it's worth sitting with this one, because the last mammoths did not die at the end of the Ice Age. They died in our world, the world of cities and writing and pyramids and the sea. They were our contemporaries, and we never knew them. And when the final one lay down on that island at the top of the world, that long-held breath the island had kept for 6,000 years finally went out, and no one was there to see it.